right, it is 11 o'clock and we are bringing you storm force coverage. New England digging out today after a major nor'easter slammed the region. If you take a live look, you can see the skyline. It is still pretty foggy out there. Boston getting about 6 inches after this nor'easter, and the cleanup really is just beginning. The storm bringing down tree limbs and power lines as well. This is the scene in Billerica. Right now, more than 300,000 people across the state are still in the dark. And part of Interstate 95 closed down in New Hampshire due to those downed power lines, but it has since been reopened. Officials are urging people to be extra careful out there on the roads as they work to clean up the mess left behind. And there's a lot of traffic trouble across the area. A commuter train in Wilmington derailed this morning. You can see it there. More than 100 passengers were on board at the time. The good news here is that nobody was hurt in that trail derailment. Let's head out to 7's Steve Cooper, who has been there live for several hours, and he's on the scene with the details for us. Steve.
Well, very quickly, I want you to take a look right here, because this is the crane that was just able to get the derailed train back onto the tracks here. We're going to swing around. I'm going to step out of the way, and you can look behind us here, and there you see the commuter train that derailed at a slow speed. This was around 6:30 this morning, and we're now being told by Keolis that it was a large branch that actually came down. It was then dragged under the train. It got wedged into the train's switcher system, causing this low-speed derailment. Now, backing up just a minute, this all happened around 6:30 this morning. This is right off of Route 62 here in Wilmington. We know that there were 100 passengers on board the train at the time. No one was hurt. Everyone was safely evacuated by Wilmington police and fire personnel that responded to the scene. Now, again, neighbors and people in the area and also passengers on the train basically telling us that they heard sort of a bump, just a brief bump, and then all of a sudden that first commuter train slid off of the tracks here. But again, at this hour, you can see the crane has now left the area. What's left of the train itself is now back onto the tracks. They're actually shoveling out the rails just beyond it, and then in a short time they're going to try to get it out of here. There are a second set of tracks here, so they were able to get other commuter trains up and down. This is the low line, by the way, but the good news is the investigation appears to be wrapping up and nobody was hurt here. That's the latest live in Wilmington this morning. Steve Cooper, 7 News.
All right, from the trains to the roads, as we mentioned earlier, I-95 in New Hampshire has been reopened after wires came down across the highway there, but it had been closed for hours, causing some huge backups. Let's head out to 7's Kim Alusi, who's been there all morning long, for more information. Kim.
And Amaka, this is being described as a major power line that came down across the highway. That shut it down for 2.5 hours. But yes, it did just reopen within about the past half hour. As you would imagine, shutting the whole thing down during the morning rush leads to a lot of problems. Let's take a look at the problem that caused it. A power pole appears to have broken, bringing down that major power line with it. Thankfully, officials at the New Hampshire DOT say they have no word of any injuries or any crashes because of it. Spoke with one driver who was on the highway at the time. He says all of a sudden everyone just stopped. It was a good thing they were all going slowly already. Power crews came out, they got the power turned off, took that line down, they rolled it up and off the highway. Once they got it off the road, that's when they were able to open things back up. Some drivers tell me they were stuck on the highway waiting for the road to reopen the whole time, about 2.5 hours. Now, even though the road is back open, traffic is flowing now at this point. The work isn't done here yet. There are still crews here on scene now. They're now working on rolling out those new lines because that line had power, cable, and telephone, so they now have to restring all of that to get things back to normal here. Live in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, Kim Lucy, 7 News.
And we know another major issue are the thousands of people who are dealing with those power outages. 7's Dan Housley is live in Northborough, where he's tracking the situation there at this hour. Dan.
Well, the snow is largely stopped, and if you stand under trees or you drive under trees, you're in danger of getting pelted by large clumps of this heavy, wet snow. You can see it just weighing down the branches here, and it is just full of water. And what it's done all night is take down trees, large and small. Look at this one behind me here, a gigantic branch all the way across the road here. In this case, they're fortunate it did not bring down power lines, but it brought down some cable lines. And as I say, large and small. Look at all all the trees that are either weighed down or snapped, and this has resulted in 98% of the people here in Northborough being without power. And I didn't get this direct information, but a lot of them say they are looking on the website of the utilities and seeing that they're going to be out, they expect, until midnight Friday or maybe well into Saturday. That seems reasonable considering that it's all caused by trees on power lines in various places around town rather than any kind of one or two fixes this is going to take. We talked to some of the crews that have been here from out of state since the last storm. Now they've moved up to this one, and they're just going through one street after the other, cutting up trees, waiting for the utility companies to come in and try to restore power. But this is a big job, and residents here are going to be in the dark for quite a while. We're live in Northborough. Dan Housley, 7 News.
And as we just saw on Dan's live shot, it's still snowing in some spots, but it looks like the worst of it is over. Let's get the latest forecast from meteorologist Chris Lambert.
Yeah, that's right, Amaka. Just some patchy snow out there. Every once in a while you get a moderate burst in some of these blue bands, but with the temperatures above the freezing mark, a lot of the roadways will fare okay, especially if they're treated just melting on contact, although you may get a brief coating in your driveway here and there. The powerhouse storm that's to the north and east of us, behind it, still wrapping in a gusty northwesterly wind, but that wind slowly subsiding as well. There are your numbers, running above freezing, low to mid 30s out there. Here are your sustained winds, 10 to 15 miles an hour, gusting to about 25. We'll keep it there, if not lower, just a touch as we go through the afternoon. So some scattered snow showers through the next few hours. Not much of that's going to really accumulate and stick to the roadways out there. Should be cool overall, seasonably cool at that. But there is a tremendous amount of cleaning up to do, because look at these big totals that came in to the north and west of Boston. There were 6 inches in Boston, but you're talking about 14 in Berlin. That's close to where Dan Housley is, 17 in Westboro, and 16 inches in Worcester. And this is where you have the majority of the power outages with that heavy wet snow. Amaka?
Chris, thank you. We're going to continue to track the continuing cleanup from this storm and all of those major power outages. We'll have reporters all over the state, and we'll have much more coming up on 7 News at noon.
We now join regular programming.